Hi there, this is Lisa Wilcox listening to Rocktober on Rock Video Rental.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Rock Video Rental. We are continuing on with Rocktober 4 and the Nightmare on Elm Street series. And today we are talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. It is from 1985 and is directed by Jack Shoulder. The plot is a teenage boy is haunted in his dreams by a deceased child murderer, Freddy Krueger, who is out to possess him in order to continue his reign of terror in the real world. The cast, we got Robert Englund as back as Freddy, Mark Patton as Jesse Walsh, Kim Myers as Lisa Weber, Robert Rusler as Ron Grady, Clu Gulager as Mr. Walsh, Hope Lang as Mrs. Walsh, and Marshall Bell as Coach Schneider. Um, this is a movie that I've seen quite a bit. I had this taped off TV on a VHS
Hmm.
that my dad taped for me one night because he's like, "Oh, there was a Nightmare on Elm Street movie on last night, so I taped it for you because I know you like those." And it was edited for TV because it was on regular TV.
Yeah.
Um, Probably at like 11 o'clock once in the morning, maybe around there. Because my dad worked third shift, so on weekends, like he couldn't sleep when normal people slept. He was just up. Um, yeah, and this for a long time was my one of my favorites of the series.
Okay.
Yeah, and I fully know now that it's completely and utterly ridiculous at times. And maybe one of the lower points of the series, but it just has this nostalgic feel for me, so I always enjoy it. Um, and like the rest of the series, I know this is a first time watch for you.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
And I told you when we started before we watched this, I'm like, do not read anything online about this movie because I want to get like your thoughts on it and then tell you the kind of the interesting behind the scenes and like deep dive into this movie that conversations that have gone on in the years after this movie came out.
Yeah. No, I don't I still don't even know with this, so
Well, before I get to the kind of maybe hidden subplot and context of this movie, we can kind of go through what we normally do. Um, I guess things that were good in this. I thought Mark Patton did a good job as Jesse. Like he's a pretty good actor, I thought.
yeah.
And to have a final boy instead of a final girl was a thing that wasn't done too many times. Off the top of my head, really the only one I can think of is The Burning.
Okay.
And there was more than like one final person in The Burning, but the main final character was a boy. So
Well, I mean Lisa was kind of final too.
yeah, a little bit, but it really Jesse's more of the Nancy in this one.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, usually it's I mean, this movie kind of broke some of those cliche, it's not the girl next door kind of thing because I mean, I guess Nancy was a little bit that way, but obviously they have a final boy who's not like the big jock boy or something like that is the final character. It's kind of an interesting twist that it was handled pretty well. And like I said, Mark Patton did a really good job as Jesse, I thought.
Hmm. Yeah, I would agree. So
Another character I enjoyed was Grady. I thought he did a pretty good job. Robert Russler.
yeah, that was a weird one. I was trying to understand the dynamic there because like they were friends and then they weren't friends and then they were
I
and
think it was more like typical guy thing, like I hate you and I'm gonna treat you like crap, and then you don't put up with it, and now I like respect you kind of thing.
I
And like a
guess.
friendship comes from it. I don't know. They don't ever really fight. I think that's the only thing that's missing, like in a typical guy kind of thing, where like they need to like get in a fist fight or something like that and then respect each other.
Well, they did get in that wrestling thing on the field.
Yeah, like a
They,
little scuffle kind of thing, I guess.
yeah, and then they had a bit of a yelling match in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was just weird because I mean, yeah, I know what you mean. Like those interesting dynamics with guy friendships and everything, but just I don't know. I usually feel like they're more clear,
Yeah.
and
And
this
there's a lot of
one,
stuff in this movie is not very clear, to
yeah,
be to be fair.
that is a very fair point. So,
Um, and then the I guess the third main character of Lisa, I thought Kim Myers did a decent job, and I just can't get over how much she looks like Meryl Streep.
no, I know, right? Like
This
I had to
looks like
look
they
it
could
up.
be like sisters or something.
Yeah, I had to look it up and I was like, no, that's not her, is it?
Well, she wasn't amazing in the movie, so it wasn't Meryl Streep.
Right.
Uh, One of Michael Scott's um heroes, Meryl Streep.
Right.
And yeah, probably the greatest actress ever. Um, Pretty fair to say she is definitely in the top five, but Kim Myers as Lisa, maybe not as good as Meryl Streep, but man, she looks so much like her.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then, I mean, things that are great. I thought the special effects were pretty good in this one.
Oh yeah.
I know they probably didn't have a huge budget for the special effects, but what they did was pretty solid all around for the most part.
Yeah, they did a really good job. There were a couple things that were a little so in the first one, you know how the mom got sucked into the bed
Yeah,
and it was kind of weird, like it didn't really fit with everything else, you know?
yeah,
That's kind of how I felt about the intro where they were on the school bus and then all of a sudden they were in like the Death Canyon or whatever the heck you want to call it.
yeah,
I kind of felt the same way about that. Of course, like that's more than special effects. You have to do something extra for that, but just kind of I don't know, it kind of stuck out kind of weird. So, but other than that, like all the other probably one of the greatest parts I thought was when Freddy came out of Jesse.
yeah. Where he just kind of like erupts out of him.
Yeah, it was I mean for the time fantastic, and so like I'm not downplaying it. Like there was a little bit of clunkiness with it at the beginning, but the part where he actually came out because they filmed that from above was really well executed because the when they stitched it together, it looked like it was actually happening with all those practical effects.
Yeah, and really that's the scene. Like when I talk with friends in high school about these movies, they're like, "Oh, one of the coolest ones is when like Freddy bursts out of the guy's chest," and that's like the one thing you always remember from this movie,
Mm-hmm.
just because of how effective it is. And I mean, it's obvious that it's a dummy, but I mean that's why I love '80s special effects.
Yeah.
It's because they had to physically make all that. There was no CGI to get around it,
Mm-hmm.
and it just has a charm to it because you know that it took way more work.
Yeah.
And I guess since we're talking about some of the effects and stuff, um, because I mean, there's not a heck of a lot in this movie that could be considered like quote unquote great, but I thought some of the kills were pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
So I can get to that part here. The first kill we get is Coach Snyder is slashed across the back after he's tied up in a shower.
And that's a death kill there, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, you cut my back.
Fall down. And then soon after Freddy bursts out of Jesse's chest, he kills Ron Grady by stabbing him through the torso, and then like the finger knives like go through the door. That's a simple one. That's a definite budget cut there because they can just show the knives going through the door. They don't have to show Grady really getting killed. But it was
Hmm.
effective.
Yeah.
And then we get the pool party scene, which I'm sure we'll talk about. We get pool partier 1 gets slashed. Pool partier 2 and 3, they get boiled in the pool. Partier 4 gets burnt. Partier 5 gets trampled. Partier 6 gets stabbed. And then the guy that tries to like calm Freddy down, which I get the kills count from Dead Meat, which is like kind of a famous um horror YouTube channel and website.
Hmm.
He does like all these kill counts for things and everything, but he has him as would-be negotiator. Gets slashed and then thrown into the grill. And then the last one is Carrie gets stabbed in the back with the finger knives, and that's at the end. So yeah, I thought most of those are handled pretty well. Um, Really, the biggest special effect we mentioned is when he bursts through Jesse's chest. But so maybe things that weren't handled so well, because we can get to some of the favorite scenes and memorable quotes and all that kind of stuff after this. Um, Things that weren't handled so well.
Okay,
They, hmm?
I want to start. Get,
Okay,
let me interject real quick, and um because I feel like this is very interesting because we've done Halloween, we've done Friday the 13th, and as we've talked about series, even some series outside of the horror genre, they seem to evolve over time. Like they don't strictly stick in the same realm or sometimes even the same genre, like they change a little bit.
yeah,
I am just extremely disappointed that they took such a great concept from the first one and then they decided so quickly to change it so drastically.
oh yeah,
Like if this was the fourth installment, I'd be like, oh, okay, I get it. They're trying something new. Like they've done it several times. They need to try a different twist. I get it. This is the second movie,
yeah.
and they make such a change to it. I was just like, why?
That's what I had. Is like they threw away the rules from the first movie that Craven started, and
Yeah.
then Freddy just comes out and kills people at a party. It's like, and he's possessing people.
Yeah.
Like this movie's all over the place.
It's so like, and then yeah, so Freddy comes out and it's really Freddy, but then Jesse's on the inside and just so convoluted with all these different things that while you're watching it, you're trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna struggle with this one because you're definitely big on the you have to figure it out.
Yeah, I
Yeah, no,
that is
you have a hard time like turning your brain off and just watching something. You get pretty analytical with things, and I'm interested to see what he says with this,
yeah.
because when you step back and you think about it, like, yeah, this movie like does not follow the rules of Nightmare on Elm Street like at all.
Hmm.
And what you said last time, like, um, about it being confusing of what Freddy can and can't do, and I'm like, oh, just wait till you get the second one. And I was like, I can't wait to see what he says. But yeah, they totally just throw the rules away. And like I've watched this with other people too, and I'd be like, okay, so like, is everyone dreaming right now? Or like, because why is Freddy killing these people at a party?
Yeah, that was a very messed up part. I mean, it first started getting messed up when clearly, Freddy came out of Jesse. Because the first kill with the coach in the bathroom in the showers was kind of like, it's a little ambiguous exactly what happened and how it happened.
Yeah.
Um, so take it for what it's worth. But then later on, it's just very clear where it's just like, okay, we're getting into the realm of like a completely different movie theory here.
Yeah, it's like Jesse turns in the Incredible Hulk, but his Hulk version is Freddy.
Right. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's spot on, I would say. Uh, and there's other weird things that happen in this movie, like their bird exploding. And it like flies around. The whole bird scene is just completely ridiculous. And like that's one of the lines that made me laugh. I'll just share it now since we're talking about it. Is when the dad just like, it's probably that cheap bird seed you've been buying. Like, yeah, this what's in this bird seed? Gasoline? Like
Yeah.
this thing just erupts into flames.
Well, then I was super confused too, where it's just like, dude, this dad just like, was that his real dad or was that stepdad or something?
I think it was his real dad.
Because he was a total douche and he was just like totally throwing his kid under the bus. And it's just like,
Yeah,
okay, does this kid have a reputation? Because like, I mean, if this was not normal for the kid, I would feel like there's a problem going on, not that my kid is the problem.
yeah,
So it was very strange.
yeah. I would definitely say the dad is one of the like the things that would lean towards bad too. And the other one I got, you talked about the gym teacher scene. So he goes to this bar. Jesse like wanders into this bar and he's trying to get a drink. And then like the bartender hands him one, and then like his gym teacher grabs him by the wrist,
Hmm.
and then he makes him go to the school and run laps. Dude, you're not in school right now. Just tell the teacher to F off and leave.
Yeah.
Like, why are you running laps for this guy?
Hmm.
Like, the only way the teacher has any kind of um power over you is in school.
Yeah. Like if he
Like
had
you see
made
him in
you,
a park and he's like trying to tell you to do something, just be like, dude, fuck off and walk off. You're not
yeah.
my dad. You're not a cop.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the worst he could have done is like the next day at school would have been like, okay, hey, I'm gonna have you run laps, you
Yeah.
know.
Or the worst thing he could have done is like maybe he went and ran the laps because he was afraid that this coach was going to tell his parents. But Jesse could also be like, dude, I saw you at an S&M bar dressed in leather.
Right?
Do you want me to tell the principal about this? Just blackmail him.
Yeah, because back
Uh,
then that was not a very common scene.
no, not at all. The only person that was dressed in more leather was Rob Halford from Judas Priest, who has more in common with this movie than you might think. But I'll get to that part later. Um, some of the dialogue in this movie was kind of awkward too, which I can cover some more of that too. Because while I'm watching these movies, I'm also watching the 5 hour documentary they did on the whole series. And they
Hmm.
spend probably about a half hour on every movie. Um, and some of the stuff they had to say about this was interesting. And I've watched the um documentary about Mark Patton, his career, and like everything that went in this movie and how it affected his career too. Um, it's just kind of interesting. Everything with this movie, like the production of it and the reputation that it has, is kind of interesting. But anything else you had for like bad?
Yeah, well, the, a little bit back to what we were talking about kind of the rules of the movie.
Yeah,
Um, and we may have touched on it last time, but we never really understood, and it was never really explained how they started having dreams about Freddy. Like, because the concept, and they don't really fully establish it, but I do know, especially since we did Freddy versus Jason before, that essentially Freddy has no power unless you know about him and think about him and eventually start dreaming about him. Like, you can't
yeah,
start dreaming about something you don't know about.
yeah,
Like, I mean, not something that specific, I guess I would say.
yeah. And this one's more of like haunted house possesses the spirit of this serial killer possesses this house, and now it's possessing the son.
Yeah, where this one was actually set up quite well, where it's just like, hey, if he found the diary in his room and he started reading it and then he started having the nightmares, boom, perfect explanation.
Yeah.
But then in the first one, there was no real explanation for it.
Now, other than it's kind of like Nancy's mom explains when Nancy starts having the dreams and tells her about it and about Fred Krueger. And she's like, he was a dirty child murderer and he went to trial, and because of a loophole, he got out free, and like the parents in the neighborhood burned him in his boiler room,
Mm-hmm.
and then he like kind of pieced together from that he exacted revenge on them like through their children's dreams.
Yeah, but like they didn't know about him to dream about him.
Yeah. It's like he had enough power to like go into their dreams, and then they're afraid of him, and now he can like kill them.
Yeah. So
And
it
has and then she brings him out, and then he has the power to kill people in the real world.
mhm. Yeah, so super weird though, but I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. Um one thing that I had down was just like, dude, Jesse, just get rid of the freaking knife glove. Like give it to somebody, get rid of it, destroy it, do something.
I think they're neat.
But then also like he doesn't even really try to get help. Like he doesn't even try to explain his situation with next to anyone. I mean,
No.
it like
And
he
like,
doesn't.
yeah, Lisa's like his friend slash love interest, and she like desperately wants to help him. She's very understanding with everything, and he's just like, no, go away.
Right? And it's just like, okay, so because dude, if any little level of that stuff happened to me, I would be freaking out and be like, dude, somebody help me. Like,
Yeah.
if you need to put me in an insane asylum for a little while or something, like something at least, like, I at least need somebody to help me.
Well, and it's just like his parents were crappy, because like the first time I had a dream like that and I woke up screaming, like my parents would be running into my room.
Yeah.
Be like, what is wrong? And then I'd explain it, and then we discuss it or whatever. And they'd help me in any way they could. Like, but his dad's just like, oh, he just needs a kick in the butt.
Yeah. I had that down and I was like, that is such a boomer thing to do. It's like, oh, just get a kick in the butt and that'll fix everything.
You just pull yourself up by your bootstraps there, bud.
Oh no. Oh man.
The
We might be
bootstrap.
we might lose a couple listeners from this one, but
Oh god.
anyways, um
Oh.
good times. So now one thing, there were a lot of different things and we might bring it up later, but one of the bigger things that I kind of caught in everything was I actually caught a movie mistake.
Oh.
Well, it's okay. It's technically, I don't think it's a mistake because I think it's something that they kind of had to do, but I just thought it was kind of interesting because I did notice it right away. In the POV film where Jesse was at the power plant and with Lisa, and then they transitioned to the next scene,
Yeah.
was a POV from Jesse's basement. And the person, which of course is like Freddy, goes up the stairs, and at the top of the stairs there's the door, and they do a little bit of a transition, and they go open the door out into the house
Hmm.
where he then is going into the house. Well, I noticed it right away because I remembered when Jesse first had one of his first interactions with Freddy that he tried pulling the door closed to keep Freddy in the basement.
Okay.
And so basically they reversed the door. Like they physically opened the door the way that it could not open. And I also rewound the scene because I was just like, wait a minute, is like, am I remembering that right? And you can actually see the door hinges on the other side of the door. So it clearly was physically impossible what they did. So my guess is that they basically filmed up to the door and then they opened the door, put a fake door in front of it, and then fake opened the other door for one
It's Freddy magic.
yeah. So I know it's like super little and it's not super important whatsoever, but I thought it was kind of interesting because I wasn't really looking for anything, but that one stood out to me because I don't know. Apparently
Uh,
I care about those little dumb things.
I was just gonna say that's why you do this show with me, because I would never in a million years think about that. But now you say that, that's funny.
Yeah. So now that's going to take a whole entire point off of the score of
Uh,
this movie because they have such a bad movie mistake.
that's hilarious. So we kind of talked about some of the memorable scenes already with I had Freddy bursting through Jesse's chest was awesome. The part at the end where Freddy melts,
Mm-hmm.
that is handled really well, and that's really a cool effect.
Yeah.
I got some information about that when I get the trivia and facts. Um, and then we get another unhappy ending, which the first time I saw this movie, I did not see that coming, where Freddy's hand bursts through the girl's chest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me a little bit
I
the
was,
first time.
dude, I'm always ready for it in horror movies. I'm always like, okay, wait for one more thing.
The jump
Wait.
scare.
Yeah.
But did you predict Jason jumping out of the lake and grabbing um Alice
Wait, was it Alice or Dad?
in Friday the 13th? The first
Yeah.
one?
Oh, the first. Oh, the first. Wait.
Yeah,
Oh, the
where he
first
jumps
one.
out of the
Sorry.
water and grabs the final girl. Yeah.
I was mixing up the name. I thought it was one of the later ones.
No.
So the kid Jason.
Yeah. In the
Yeah.
very first movie.
No, that one was that one definitely was not ready for that.
Yeah,
That did
that
a good job.
one's yeah, by far one of the best like that. Um
Part of that
uh
was because they didn't even really introduce him.
no, that's what
So
it came out of nowhere. That
yeah.
was a Tom Savini addition to that. But this one was a little more easier to see than that. But I mean, I was a kid the first time I saw this, and I remember like being, whoa.
Oh snap. Don't ride the
Yeah.
school bus.
Yeah. Anything else you got?
We talked about the weird bird thing. I had that as a memorable part. Two other things I had just that stuck out to me. One was the knives coming out of the fingers thing
Yeah.
for Jesse. Practical effects again, but still really well done. And honestly, like, I mean, it makes you think about it. And I mean, that's just gross, and painful to think about. The other thing I had this down just because it's funny. I felt like it was probably maybe the best delivered line in the entire movie that just felt natural. And it was when Grady was talking to Jesse and he was just like, I think you are seriously losing it, bro. Um, and I don't know. It's funny because it stood out to me where I was just like, wow, that that was so natural. That was so well done. And it's such a small, stupid, simple line, but I felt, and again, that's not to say that all the acting in this was bad or anything, but just, I don't know. Going and talking about like realism and things that you just happen in the natural world, that was one that was just like, that just fit perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, that one always gets me too because I don't know, I just like that character. I like
Mm-hmm.
how like the interactions he has with Jesse and how he just kind of gives him crap, but they
Yeah.
kind of like give it back and forth to each other, and I feel like it's kind of like a legit guy friendship
Yeah.
feeling to it.
And then he kills him.
Once they finally get there.
Yeah.
Um yeah. Okay, so now I'll get to the probably the most talked about subtext of this movie. And I'm interested to see if you picked up on it because you're pretty analytical with stuff.
Okay.
Did you realize how gay this movie is?
Yes, and I was wondering what exactly was going. The biggest question I had, and I was very confused because I felt like I set the tone for it. Why was Jesse wearing makeup at the beginning? Like he had eyeliner on?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
It was
he
the
he,
80s.
he looked kind of almost like he was going for an emo look in that first school bus nightmare scene.
Hmm.
And then he didn't look like that for the rest of the movie. So I thought it was super because I thought that was going to be his character and the way that he kind of looked.
Yeah, he
But
looks
then,
kind of sickly in the first part of it.
yeah, but then the rest of it, he looked like a normal, like he didn't have, honestly, it made me think of some of those punk rockers
Yeah.
because I think he had dyed hair too. I
Yeah,
swear
his hair looked like all messed up and kind of greasy.
Yeah, like, and maybe even darker. It just looked very weird. And then so I kind of thought like maybe it was a suppressed, it was a dream. So maybe it was like some kind of suppressed thing, like, oh, this is who I really am, but I don't really show it and everything. So that's why I was in his dream. But then there was no other reference to it anywhere else in the movie. So I was super confused with that, but felt that was maybe tied to the whole kind of what you were saying with the gay theme throughout the movie.
Yeah. Well, a little bit backstory with it. Mark Patton is a gay man.
Okay.
Um, he was not out because it was the 80s, and this movie kind of had a really bad impact on his career. He didn't really do much after this. Um, I
So,
I
okay, hold
heard
on.
also. Hmm?
Real quick. So, did the people, did anyone know he was gay getting this role?
No, he kind of
So,
kept that. He was in the closet when he
yeah.
took this role, and I think after this movie, like words got out that he was gay, and it kind of like ruined his career. And the director was a real kind of a tool. I don't. You have to watch that documentary about him and his career because it's kind of sad. Because he was incredibly talented, like he could sing and dance and all this other stuff.
Well, that's kind of weird because it's just kind of like, I almost feel like part of this was geared towards his character being gay or bisexual.
Yeah, the way this movie was written, the way this movie is directed, um, pretty much, and how it's shot and all that kind of stuff is very, very gay. And the director claims he had no like real reason to make it that way, and he wasn't trying to do that. And anything that comes across as gay was not on purpose. But like a lot of the people involved with it, just like, how did he not know? Like Robert Englund said too. Like Robert Englund was excited with this movie to kind of like push the envelope and to approach something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I feel like it just brings a different level to this movie, to the character kind of thing. He's like, and I was excited to do it. He's like, and apparently the director claims that he has no idea that it was like that. And he's like, it's pretty obvious if you look through the script and everything.
Yeah, like there were so like, even if you were editing this movie or working with it, looking at it where it's just kind of like, okay, Jesse and Grady, weird dynamic going on there. Um, the weird shower thing with the coach just kind of gave off a weird vibe. Um,
Yep.
the way people treated Jesse, not it didn't even completely come across as like, oh, you're a nerd, we're bullying you. It felt like there was more behind it. And then also, like I said, the way that he looked in the first nightmare opening sequence had that odd element to it where it seemed like he was makeuped up and like going for that more flamboyant look. And then the
When he
bar
wakes up like
thing,
screaming like a girl too. He
true.
screams like a girl numerous times in this movie.
Yeah.
And he doesn't come across as like a strong masculine guy. He's definitely more of a flamboyant, um, softer person. And I mean, it makes sense now that you know that the actor is actually gay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, the production designer was gay. You mentioned his relationship with Grady. There is an exchange between them two. I talked about how some of the dialogue's a little clunky.
Yeah.
Where he shows up at Grady's house and he's like, I'm scared, Grady. Something is trying to get inside my body. And Grady says, yeah. And she's female and she's waiting for you in the cabana and you want to sleep with me.
Yeah, I do remember that part.
Yeah. And they're both just kind of like shirtless a lot. And, the whole thing with the coach and like ties the coach up in a shower and whips him with a towel across the butt.
Yeah.
And like the coach is at an S&M bar and, uh, so many weird things in this.
Well, then
Oh,
too, like it was Jesse and Lisa was very like, Lisa was all about him, but then
yeah.
Jesse was not all about Lisa. And so that creates a different vibe there. And also there's constant friction where Jesse is not, just basically does not seem interested. There are a few parts where he actually does something, kisses her, whatever, and it seems awkward.
Yeah, there wasn't really any, there wasn't um chemistry between them,
Mm-hmm.
like in a romantic way, but I feel like they had good chemistry as friends, where the relationship is really hard to figure out because, like you said, it's like she was all about him, but he was not. Where it's like she loves him and he loves spending time with her, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you're such a good friend," kind of thing.
She
And
got
then, you know,
friend zoned.
they're like making out, and then he like takes off running and goes and spends the night with Grady.
Yeah.
Um, dude, there's so many little things in this movie too. Like you could analyze this movie for hours, but there's so many little things that like I picked this up from the Never Sleep Again documentary. Um, there's a sign on Jesse's bedroom door that says "No chicks allowed."
Oh, okay.
There's a board game in his closet that's called Probe.
Huh.
Yeah, and it's just little things like that. And then you got the whole dance scene. That's incredibly flamboyant.
I'm trying to remember that.
The dance scene where he's putting stuff away in his room. How could you
Oh,
not remember
yes.
that?
Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking about the party.
And he
But yeah, no,
closes
I
the drawer to his dresser with his butt. And he's like butt thrusting into it.
yeah.
Then he's got like that popper thing, and he's like got it down by his crotch, and then
Dude,
pops it and jumps.
dude, my grandparents had a popper like I
Did
remember
you ever
like
dance around with it on your crotch like that?
no, I did not. Thankfully I
To
can
oh man, what's that name of that song? I've heard it a few times on the 80s station.
yeah, but
All night long.
yeah, I saw that and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I've seen that before." So, well
It's
then
hilarious.
oh shoot, another thing though. Oh, dang it, there was something else that I had that was kind of a subtle. Oh, well, the kills. How many girls actually died?
Not very many.
Yeah, and it seemed like it was very specific. Like I almost at that point when people started dying, I was just kind of like, okay, is this like trying to have some stuff specifically about gay and homosexuality and like being negative towards it now because they're killing like so many guys and
Right.
they're almost avoiding girls? So like it when that started happening, I thought it was really weird because yeah, what was it like? I think there was one girl in the pool that died, and then there was the girl at the very end of the movie that died, and everybody else is guys, which is for a horror movie very strange because most of the time it's the girls who are getting killed. So
Yeah. That's that's another interesting thing too to think about because it is mostly guys in it. Really, with other than a couple of people at the party and then Carrie at the end, the rest of them are guys.
yeah, the main kills are
Yeah.
all guys.
Yeah. Except for Carrie at the end.
Yeah, that's not main. No, I'm just kidding.
You are an idiot. Um, yeah, one of the things too is that kind of the argument with it is that the director claims the movie comes off as gay because Mark Patton was gay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Mark Patton says the movie came off as gay because the director and writer made it that way, and he just doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, yes, Patton's acting was on the side of flamboyant. Like he was a softer male personality, was more in that role and everything, but it was way more how it was written than how he acted.
Oh, totally.
So, yeah, I definitely support more so support what he's saying than the counterpoint because I mean, I did not I mean, so like the dancing scene that we talked about,
Yeah.
that's not I mean, yeah, I mean that was flamboyant, like kind of gay anyways. in itself, and he didn't make that happen. That was written into it. Like if he
Mhm.
didn't want that theme to be in there, then choose some kind of a heavy metal rock song for a guy to air guitar to or
Right.
something. Um, and just countless different parts where it's just like the one that you referenced earlier too, where he ran away from Lisa and then went to Grady, and it was the whole thing on being like, why are you wanting to sleep with me, a guy, when there's a girl who's waiting for you back at the party?
Yeah.
That's not an acting thing.
Uh, yeah. But yeah, basically in that documentary about Mark Patton, like he confronts the director. It's kind of interesting. He's like, I want you to admit that it wasn't all me that made this movie this way. You know the thing.
Oh
But
man,
yeah, definitely worth a watch. I got some trivia and facts. You want me to share those?
rock.
All right. So New Line Cinema originally didn't ask Robert Englund to return as Freddy and refused to give him a pay raise. A stuntman was cast as Freddy at the start of the production, but after 2 weeks of filming, Robert Shea realized this was a terrible lapse in judgment. They fired the stuntman, hired England, and met his demands.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. In the opening sequence, the bus driver is actually Robert England without the Freddy makeup.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, he shows up a few times in these movies without the makeup. It's the only film in the Nightmare on Elm Street series that has a male lead. And one of the few slasher movies that has a male lead.
Mm-hmm.
So Kim Myers was allegedly casted in the film due to her resemblance to Meryl Streep.
Okay.
Michael J. Fox was considered for the role of Jesse, but wasn't
Okay.
able to do unable to do his commitments, or unable to do so because of his commitments to Back to the Future and Teen Wolf that came out in the same year.
Yeah, I feel like this would have been weird for him.
Yeah, that might have hurt his career.
Mm-hmm.
In an interview featured in Search of Darkness Part 2, Robert Englund states that he was fully aware of the homoerotic elements of the film and was enthusiastic about playing up the undertones on screen interactions between Freddy and Jesse. Um, Mark Patton says in Never Sleep Again that he had to say no to some of the pieces of business, such as Freddy putting the blades in Jesse's mouth, because it just made him feel uncomfortable.
Hmm.
So, Mark Patton, an openly gay actor, has amusingly stated that he sees himself as the first male scream queen
Oh,
due to
okay.
the combination of factors, including the film's homoerotic subtext, the fact that he is often depicted on screen screaming like a girl, and because he viewed the character as a closeted gay man.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say.
So Robert Rusler auditioned for the role of Ron Grady on the last day of shooting Weird Science. Robert Downey Jr. actually drove him to the audition
Hmm.
because they played friends in Weird Science that were bullies. So unlike the first film, this film shows Freddy's sweater has stripes on the sleeves. In the original one, only the stripes are only on the torso of the sweater, and the sleeves are solid red.
Okay.
The school used to film um, the school scenes in this movie was the same school that was used in The Karate Kid.
Oh,
So Brad Pitt, John Stamos, Christian Slater all auditioned for the role of Jesse. Stamos ended up playing a character named Jesse in the TV show Full House. So the film is the third film that Christopher Young had musically composed. The first two films are The Dorm That Dripped Blood and The Power. The Dorm That Dripped Blood is also a slasher movie.
I kind of got that from the title there.
Yeah. The Power, I don't think I've ever seen. The sequence where Freddy terrorizes the pool party was viewed by the cast, crew, and many fans as the most nonsensical scene in the movie. It was believed that it broke the rules set forth by Wes Craven in the film, namely because Freddy is attacking people while they are awake. And yes, that's exactly what we said.
Yep.
So Robert Rusler, who played Grady, revealed that when he watched the film in theaters with his dad, he glanced over during his character's death scene he was banging on the door and yelled for his father's help, um, his dad was actually crying in the theater.
Dude, yeah, that was like that was probably the best death scene in that movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So Freddy melting at the end was done with a wax bust that was made of Freddy's head, and it was melted by hair dryers, and it was done in only one shot because they only had one bust.
Oh man.
Yeah. So this movie was named number one on the 5 most unintentionally gay horror movies ever.
Okay.
And I would say this would be right towards the top of most unintentionally gay movies too, along with Top Gun. Uh, and the last thing I got is this movie cost $3 million and it made 30 million in the box office.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it made more than the first movie, believe it or not.
That would be correct.
Yeah, which surprised me because I watched that documentary and they said that, and I'm like, what? And I went back and checked. I'm like, oh, really?
Hmm.
Uh, so grades I pulled from IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. What do you think they are?
5.9.
It's a 5.4.
Okay. I figured it was somewhere in the 5 range. Rotten Tomato critic. Oh, man. Okay. Are they going to view the whole thing as a positive or a negative? Give me a 61%.
Oh, you said 61. Sorry, you kind of broke up there for a second.
Oh, yeah, 61%.
It is a 42.
Ooh. Okay. Audience 55.
33.
Oh, wow, even lower.
Yeah. Usually people consider this probably the worst of the bunch. Or
Okay.
not really, I guess, now that I think about it, but for one of the earlier ones, it's probably the worst of the earlier ones. But yeah, I guess I'll go with my grade. Um, like I said, when I was a kid, this was like I considered this one of my favorites. And then it wasn't until I think I was in college, and this was like when the internet was really kind of like taking off, like movie reviews and stuff, and like groups on Facebook talking about movies. And I see people like talk about how gay the movie was, and I'm like, what? And then I read about it, and then I watched it again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I not see this?
That's funny. That's kind of interesting.
Even as a teenager, like I should have saw it. And then I just laughed, and like I remember my friend Tim laughing. He's like, dude, you said that was like your favorite one. Which is like, you know what? It's still an entertaining movie and it's still ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's still a fun watch at times. Um, I had a hard time grading this because I always enjoy watching it, but I understand like it totally takes the rules from the first movie, throws them out the window, kind of craps on the first one a little bit because of that.
Hmm.
And then there's a few things it does well. I like the idea of having a final boy instead of a final girl. I think the acting pretty much all around's decent. I mean, we didn't even talk about Robert Englund. He does a great job as Freddy again.
Oh yeah. I feel like
Um,
that's probably going to be a given through this whole series
oh
where
yeah,
it's
for
just like
sure.
he's the anchor.
Robert Englund as an actor overall is incredibly underrated. Out of all the stuff he's ever been in, he's always really good. I mean, Stranger Things, he was awesome in Stranger Things.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but Mark Patton, I thought did a really good job, and it's kind of sad that his career kind of took a nosedive after this because he had so much talent.
Yeah.
Um, and he could have had a bigger career if it wasn't for the time of being a gay man in the 80s. I mean, unless you're Liberace, you're probably not going to get looked at too much. Um, yeah, I don't know. I ended up falling on a 3.5 out of 5 just because I know it's not the greatest. It's really kind of hard to figure out the rules of this world in this one.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I still enjoy it, and it's definitely not the worst of the series. I mean, I kind of know what to expect coming into the next few movies and stuff, and you don't. So
Yeah.
I kind of got a little bit of leg up there. But what about you? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's tough for me because I feel like there's a significant drop from the first one, But looking at it from a serious perspective, only the second movie in, very disappointing, but also I have no idea what other ground we're going to be covering. But as a movie individually, I mean, I don't know if you said this earlier, maybe you did, so I'm not trying to steal it, but kind of the Halloween 3 vibes.
Yeah.
Did you mention that?
No, but
Where
that's a
it's
good
just
point.
where it's just like it sticks out so bad, but if you look at it by itself, it's a good movie. Because honestly, like the concept of him controlling someone and them essentially doing the killing for him, cool, interesting concept. Like, I'm not gonna lie, interesting. It went through a different way and turned some unexpected corners, so give it credit for that. But it being a part of the Nightmare on Elm Street specifically is kind of like throws a wrench in things. I took a little bit of a deeper dive on my score because we both were 5 out of 5 for the first one. I
Mhm.
dropped to a 3 out of 5.
Okay.
I was thinking maybe 2.5, but at the same time, I'm giving a little bit of credit for just the movie independently by itself. Um, Again, usually, or when we're going to wrap up this series, we'll talk through, and there's a possibility that the score might change, but I feel confident that's not going to be far off from 3 out of 5. So,
Rock. Yeah, I'm interested to see what you feel about the next movie because a lot of people consider um the third one of the best in the series.
okay.
Which I'm excited to go back and watch it again. I always enjoy watching Dream Warriors. Um, but yeah, come by next time. We're going to be talking about Dream Warriors. And if you're enjoying this and you want to listen to more of us talking about horror, go back and listen to the other Rocktobers. We've covered Friday the 13th, we've covered the Halloween series, and we've covered some classic horror. Um, and I think probably after this year, we might sprinkle in some horror every once in a while because I feel like it's kind of an interesting dynamic we have because I've seen mostly everything and you haven't seen hardly any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a fresh take. That's what I was really looking forward to doing this one, to seeing if you picked up on the gay subplot.
Yeah,
And I'm not surprised you noticed it because you're pretty
I
I don't
break
know.
things down a lot.
Yeah, you got a critical eye and you can pick up on things easier than I can because I'm I guess I'm not as deep as you are with stuff. And then when you say it, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, come by next time. We're going to be talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors and the awesome theme song by Dokken that goes with it. But until then, as always, be kind and rewind.